Hello, everyone. I am Shelby Cooke, the editor-in-chief and head curator at Film East. And today I am joined in an interview with Rachel Handler, who is a filmmaker and disability activist whose latest short film, Don't Take This the Wrong Way, was just released. We're going to talk a little bit about Rachel's career, her new film, and get some advice from Rachel about how you as a filmmaker can get started in your own career. So thank you for joining us today, Rachel.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me, Shelby. I'm thrilled to be here.
Great. So let's start off. General question. Tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into the film industry.
Sure. Well, my name's Rachel Handler, and I started by performing in musicals in community theater. I found a passion for acting and singing at a very young age. And then I sort of transitioned into film and TV after my accident, after I became an amputee. I realized that in a way I was holding myself back almost by not letting myself dream of being in movies and TV shows, you know? Like I dreamt of Broadway. That was always the dream. But film and TV, growing up in New Jersey, Hollywood seems so far away, you know? So after my accident, I started writing and I wrote my first short film and I won Best Actor in the Disability Film Challenge. And everything sort of spiraled from that point. So I really credit the Film Challenge for helping me find my voice and helping me find a new passion because I had been focused on singing and acting for so long. It was nice to discover different creative outlets.
We have a very similar background too, because I also started in musical theater. But I always dreamed of being a Broadway star, but I can't hold a pitch for my life. So that obviously is going to happen for me.
Yeah, the singing helps. I mean, really, like, I was looking back at an autograph book I had from when I went to Disney World when I was like 4 and maybe 6. But I had my uncle wrote in the book, keep on singing, you sound amazing, you know? And so even from that young age, I was getting like such positive reinforcement, like, you have a beautiful voice, keep singing, keep performing. So I just never stopped. Never.
Yeah, and sometimes that's just what you have to do. You just have to be creative and get creativity out there. So
Yeah.
you seem to be a jack of all trades. You kind of seem to do everything. You direct, you act, you write, you produce, you sing. Is there one path in particular that you seem to tend to go down more?
I tend to call myself more of a writer actor. I always say that I produce out of necessity. It's just how it goes with indie filmmaking. You know, a lot of times if I write a script and I'm like, I want to get this done, I end up also being a producer on the project. And then with directing, I've always been intimidated by directing. I think it's because, like, I love acting and I tend to write roles for myself. So on set, I really like to collaborate with the DP, with the director, and let those decisions inform my acting choices. So if I direct the project as well, I'm like, man, that's one less person to collaborate with and spitball with, you know? But I've recently found myself wanting to direct more. I had such an incredible experience with Don't Take This the Wrong Way. And I co-directed, and my co-director, Crystal, she's an incredible director, incredible DP. She knows all about the cameras and the lenses, and that's where my knowledge falls a little flat. So it was a great collaboration because I could sort of handle some of the like acting moments of the directing process, and she handled some of the, more technical elements. But that is something that I'm starting to learn more about, and I just, I don't know. I think I'm ready to take the next step and direct some more of my work. But I think I'll always want to write, like that'll never stop. And the directing is just a really nice added bonus to get to do for my own work.
So before we get into Don't Take This the Wrong Way, you're have you done more directing with other films before? Like, is this your first time with your hand at directing, or did you do that before?
Co-directed a few times before on short films. For Committed, I actually won the AT&T Underrepresented Filmmaker Award, which was very cool. And then I co-directed a musical that I did in 2023, where I actually won Best Writer in the Disability Film Challenge for that. So I've co-directed before, but I've never directed on my own, which is on my bucket list now. Yeah,
That
yeah.
seems to be the next step. And I agree with you. Directing sounds like the most terrifying thing because everyone looks at you, you're in charge, and you're just like, oh, I don't know what
Right?
I'm doing.
Right? Yeah, yeah. And my personality is not very like take charge, let's go, you know? But I got really lucky last summer. I did two feature films, indie films that were written and directed by young female filmmakers. And it was such a cool experience because I saw them leading the way that I would lead. Like they were so kind, so empathetic, and not to say that I haven't worked with other directors that weren't kind and empathetic. They certainly were. But it was just a different style, like a different tone. They were leaning more on their DPs for guidance with the cameras and the lenses and the angles and all of that. So it was really cool to see people similar to me directing a feature film for the first time and figuring it out as they went. So that was really cool. And yeah, I just have so much respect for people who take the plunge and are like, I've never done this before, but I've studied it and I'm going to try. You know, I think that's the only way to do it. That's how I got so well good at writing was essentially just like writing a lot, co-writing, you know, and then finally I like really started to find my voice and my rhythm and now I'm comfortable doing it on my own.
Yeah.
But I always look forward to the part where I can bring the script to the director or bring it to the DP or my producers and be like, okay, what do we think? What are we going to work on next? You know? Yeah,
I
yeah.
was I had another interview this morning with a very young filmmaker. He's only 19. And what was very exciting about being able to interview him was that he is very genuinely at that very start of his career. So it was a unique
Yeah.
opportunity of being able to say, like, you know, you're at that point now where you're going to make all those mistakes. And, once you get older in your career, you don't want to talk about those mistakes that you make and how challenging it is. But that's always something that, a lot of people, in the industry, when you're starting out, you don't see these, other people making all these mistakes. But it's good to know that it is a journey, it is a process, and it is just a matter of jumping in, figuring it out as you go along, and working out the kinks until you feel comfortable enough to be able to do it confidently and get to that stage of your career where you're not going to be as timid and scared on the set when you're making things.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Like I can think of so many times where I've made a film and it's like, oh, it just didn't jive, you know? Like
Yeah.
I wasn't on the same page as the director or something, you know? And those mistakes happen like all the time. And like I'm still proud of the film, I'm still proud of our work, but like I think there's a little bit of a perfectionist in me that's like, man, if I could go back and like redo that shot or something. I think we've all had experiences like that. And that's the beauty of creativity. Like it's an ebb and flow. And I can make an award-winning film one year and then a flop the next year. You know, it's just part of the process. And that doesn't change. And it's a good thing. I mean, if you can embrace it and not get too like emotionally attached to the stories that you're telling, it can be a really nice thing to be like, hey, it is what it is. Like no pressure, let's just make art. And that's why I like the Disability Film Challenge too, because it really is like a chance to put your creativity out there in a pretty like, well, it can be stressful to do a film challenge, but it's also like an unstressful environment because everyone's there volunteering their time, trying to like let their creative juices flow. So it's like it feels like the stakes aren't super high. Like we're not spending $1 million and have like lawyers and studio
Yeah.
heads breathing down our neck, you know? It's a nice way to like express yourself and make some art. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about the Disability Film Challenge. Don't take this the wrong way, was part of the Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge back in April. Firstly, can you give an explanation of what it is, and then maybe talk a little bit more about the film and what the film is?
Yeah, so the Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge happens every year. I think this year was like, I want to say the 12th year or 13th year. But it's an incredible week where you write, shoot, and edit a short film. And the film can only be up to 5 minutes long. So, like, they do give parameters. They've started announcing the theme for the films in January at Sundance
Oh,
to help, you know, build
yeah.
momentum, get some excitement going for the film challenge. So you can start writing ahead of time if you'd like. But then in April, they announce props, themes, and locations you have to use in your script, in your film. So a lot of times, if you come up with an idea that you love, but it doesn't fit these other parts of the assignment, you kind of have to like either rework it or start from scratch. But it's such a cool process, and usually it's on a Tuesday through a Sunday. So you get the assignment on Tuesday, and you have to shoot and edit and submit your final film by Sunday evening. So it's definitely a whirlwind of a process, but I love it. It's kind of, I almost feel like it's an addiction. Like once you do it and you
Uh-huh.
get like a hit of that like creativity and that flow state, it's like, oh, I need more of this, you know? I think that's a big reason why I keep coming back to it every year. I'm like, oh my gosh, I want that feeling again. I want that pressure, but that excitement and that stress, but the thrill of it, you know? So it's a great film challenge. And the rules are you must have at least one person with a disability in front of or behind the camera. Every year I have way more than one person with a disability on my team. I think that's so important. And the stories don't even have to be about disability. You know, it can be like when I won the AT&T Underrepresented Filmmaker Award, that short film was just about a group of friends who all happened to have disabilities, but like their disabilities were never mentioned. They weren't part of the storyline. They were just apparent. So, yeah, I think I would say for anyone thinking about doing a film challenge, the Disability Film Challenge is an incredible one to enter. And if you don't know anyone with a disability, now you know what's lacking in your network and you can find someone and enter the challenge. Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about the film that you made for this year?
So the genre this year was thriller.
Mm.
And I love thrillers. Psychological thrillers are like my jam
Yeah.
recently. So as I was like mulling over this genre, I thought, well, what is like eating me up inside right now? You know, like I always like to draw from my personal experiences. And I listened to my friend Daisy Friedman, who's an incredible young filmmaker. Her film screened at Sundance, South by Southwest. Like she's doing incredible work. And I listened to her on a podcast talk about like how lines of dialogue in her film came from her real life experiences, you know? And she got pretty specific with it. And I was like, well, what's something specific from my life? And I started thinking about all these microaggressions that I've experienced as a disabled woman. And top of mind was like, I was on a radio interview about a play that I was in called Cost of Living in Philadelphia. And the interviewer said, oh, I don't like the word disability. I prefer the word challenged. And then I didn't get a chance to respond. So, um, I, and it took me a while to process, like, that is a microaggression. It's an ableist microaggression against a person with a disability. And I started thinking of other experiences in my life where I've had moments like that. And I've been told many times when I'm out in public and my leg is shown, because I wear a prosthetic leg, uh, I've been told, like, oh, don't take this the wrong way, but you walk so well with that, you know? And most days it's fine. I'm
Yep.
like, whatever, okay, thanks. Like I wasn't thinking about my leg just now. I didn't want to think about how I look different from everyone else in this grocery store, but fine, whatever. But then the artist in me, the writer in me was like, well, what if I wasn't fine that day? What if this was like the straw that broke my back? So don't take this the wrong way is about a woman going through a really hard time and she keeps experiencing all these ableist microaggressions in her daily life and she unravels and it gets violent and you start to wonder, what's real, what's actually going on, and what's not real. There are intrusive thoughts entering her mind because of what's happening to her and her emotional state. So that's sort of where the idea stemmed from. Yeah.
It was quite fun watching it because you lead up into it and you expect what's going to happen, oh, don't take this the wrong way. And then the person, you playing the disabled person, kind of how you expect they would act in a real situation. And then all of a sudden it just flips and you're like, oh, it's very shocking when you watch it because you're like, oh my gosh. It's like, oh wow, this is crazy.
Yeah, that was kind of the reaction I was going
Yeah.
for. I definitely I love a dark sense of humor. Like a lot of the topics that I explore in my writing are depressing, are sad, are like Handmaid's Tale level traumatic. So I like to find moments of like dark humor to sort of give there a little bit of lightness, even a little bit of hope. Like, are you rooting for her to actually like hurt someone? And that's what I wanted to explore with this film. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the film is really an interesting blend of the horror, of the comedy. There's surrealism, there's a lot of irony in it. And I just found that to be a really interesting tone. And something that you don't really, when you think about, oh, this is going to be a film about disabilities, you expect it to be very straightforward, very on the nose. And I think that's what makes it so exciting is that you play around with expectations. You play around with, you know, it's okay to kind of make fun of yourself and it's okay to make fun of the situation that you're in. It doesn't always have to be so necessarily so serious all the time because your whole life is serious. It's fun to play
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah, especially when you're approaching such, like social justice issues and societal issues. I always think of Crip Camp and how, it's an incredible documentary now on Netflix, and it's the story of how the Americans with Disabilities Act came to be, essentially. And it really started with a bunch of disabled kids going to this camp in upstate New York and like building community and finding their sexuality and doing drugs and like all of these things that make us human. But that connection really is what led to realizing that there should be change, there should be more accessibility, and that led to Section 504, which eventually led to the Americans with Disabilities Act. So the more we can build, I think the better the world will be, the more empathy we can build through that as well. So I saw Crip Camp quite a few years ago, and it's still like every scene in that film really stick with me. Like, I wish they would show something like this in schools because disability is so often like hidden, And I think that's what's great about the film challenge too. It's like we're putting disability at the forefront. Most of the films include at least one actor with a disability. And some disabilities are non-apparent. Like there are apparent disabilities like my prosthetic leg. There are non-apparent disabilities like autism. And it's really highlighting all of those disabilities and showing the creativity that the filmmakers with these disabilities have. Like there were 123 films this year,
Wow.
and all of them were unique and captivating and really incredible storytelling in their own way, Like, I don't know how the judges judged this year. There were just so
Uh-huh.
many incredible. Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring this one up because I really had a laugh when I saw this on the YouTube section or the YouTube comments underneath the video. There's a comment there that says that your film is like the disability John Wick, and I just thought that absolutely 100%. I wish I would have come up with that because that is 100% what it is. If you need a tagline, that's like what your tagline should be. Um, but do you feel a sort of responsibility to represent disabled people on screen? Um, you mentioned earlier that another film that you worked on was about a group of friends with disabilities, but the movie wasn't about the disabilities. Can you kind of elaborate more on why you wanted to go down that path and not necessarily it being a film about disability, but having that representation still there?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I also loved that comment, and I
Yeah.
think it's so funny because I love John Wick movies. They're also one of my husband's favorite
Uh-huh.
movies, and I told him I should have given him like a writer consultant credit or something on this film because he really like helped me bounce ideas and get it to where it was at for the shoot. But yeah, I was nervous when this film came out on the Film Challenge YouTube channel because it is violent. I don't want disabled people to be seen as like villains, like Captain Hook, Darth Vader. Like amputees are a lot of times portrayed as villainous. And that's not what I wanted. But I think this story is much more complex than that. So I was nervous, but also like really excited because, especially right now in the disability community, there is an undercurrent of rage. Um, and I think it's healthy to get in touch with that rage and that anger about societal barriers. Like a lot of times, our disabilities are not our biggest challenges, And that's why that comment bothered me so much. I don't view my disability as a challenge. It's brought so much more to my life than just challenges. It's brought different connections. It's given me more resilience. It's made me a more empathetic person. So to call a disability just a challenge, it's kind of an insult. And I'm also like, challenges aren't covered by the ADA. My legal rights are because I'm disabled. That's what's protecting me. So I think really, when I made Don't Take This the Wrong Way, I was like hoping that the disability community would embrace it because of those nuances, because of the state of our society right now. And they really did. And it was really cool to have people write to me and say, like, man, I wish I could be like Darcy sometimes, And that was the reaction I was hoping for. And I think just as much as it's important to have stories that share specifically disabled experiences, it's also important to just see people with disabilities living their lives, like everyday little small things. Like in the film Committed, which is now on the Slam Dance channel. Yes, that story was like a couple got engaged and then they were going to move away from their friends. So my character was like, I want to try to sabotage the engagement so they don't actually get engaged, so they won't move away. And it was very silly and funny, and it sort of had like one of those like friends like rom-com sort of tone to it. And I would love to see more of that, where the casting just includes people with disabilities. And it'd be nice for writers with disabilities to be on the staff, producers with disabilities, even if disability isn't necessarily ingrained into the story, you can still be inclusive. Like, don't be afraid of it.
Absolutely. So what's on the horizon for you? What's next? Are you working on any future projects? What's coming up for you?
Well, I did just win a grant, and I'll be expanding my documentary into a feature film.
Fabulous.
I'm really excited. Yeah, the documentary is called "How Much Am I Worth?" and I originally made it as a short film in 2020 where I just on Zoom interviewed a few of my friends with disabilities about health insurance, and I wanted to know like how hard is it for you to get a wheelchair? My friend moved to Norway. How's your health insurance coverage there for your prosthetic legs, And it was really fascinating, and it spread so much awareness throughout America. At every film screening, I would get people coming up to me being like, I had no idea you couldn't just get a wheelchair through insurance. Like, what? So I'm expanding that, and I'm interviewing a few of the same people from the short film, and I will be including even more women with disabilities. So the story is really focused on women with disabilities in America, in Norway, in England, exploring healthcare and health insurance through their lens and seeing how these antiquated systems affect their real lives. So I'm really excited to be working on this feature. And I'm also writing a feature film. It's a sports drama about an amputee who decides to train for a triathlon. So I was doing research, and I think the only female amputee who's ever completed the Ironman triathlon, oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget her name now. I was just looking at it. I'll think of it and I'll write it in the comments on this. But there was only one ever. So I was like, I'm going to write a film about another female amputee actually doing the Ironman. And I'm setting it in a world where women must have children or pay fines.
Okay. It's
And
not going to be too far
I,
off. I hate to say it, but
I know. I'm always exploring what's going on in society, different issues, different, laws and bills that are being introduced, and I'm playing off of that a lot in this film. And I've also been reading a book about Virginia Hall, who was a spy during World War II. She also wore a prosthetic leg. And in France, I learned that they had these rules where women had to have children or pay fines. So in this world, this woman, she's trying to have a baby, but she has a really devastating miscarriage and just sort of get over that grief to distract herself, to push her body in new ways that she can control. She decides to train for this triathlon. So it's very dramatic. It's a sports drama though. So I'm definitely finding a lot of hope and resilience and some dark humor in this story as well. So I've been plugging away at that for the past few weeks. Yeah, lots of exciting stuff.
those both sound so great, and the documentary in particular, I think, would is going to be really interesting, particularly with the way that politics is going at the moment, not just in America, but you're seeing the same thing in England in particular, because you mentioned England, of
Yeah,
the Labour Party is in charge. They're very much a conservative-led Labour Party. So it'll be
yeah.
interesting to see how, even just since your first, just since the short, how much things have changed.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when I was creating the short in 2020, there were like threats to cut Medicaid, but nothing quite as substantial as what's happening right now. So we're really hoping to start production this summer, And we're going to start with the people that we're interviewing in DC. The pushy lawyer on Instagram, Kelly, she's fantastic. And she's going to like sort of talk us through her own story, but also her experience with SSI and SSDI and how the changes to Medicaid could really affect her life and the lives of a lot of people with disabilities. So we'll start there, and I'll be filming my own experience getting a new prosthetic leg covered by insurance. And we'll be able to compare a lot of these things with Denise in Norway and Ashley in England. Denise wears a prosthetic leg. Ashley uses a prosthetic arm. Jaleesa in America wears a prosthetic arm. So we've got all of these different connections, and I want this to be very personal to these women's experience and my own experience, but I also want it to be a bit of an investigative documentary where we're figuring out like what is working in health insurance and what is not. And how can we as a society raise our voices and create change? So that's, yeah, I'm super excited about this one.
Those sound like really great projects, and I'm interested to see them when they come out. They sound really good.
Thank you.
So the last question that I always end any interview with, that we do with a filmmaker, is this one. So we have a lot of young people. Our organization targets primarily young people interested in film. We have a lot of people who come to us asking about making movies. We're not a production company. We don't do that. I have no interest in making a movie, and I have no idea how to make a movie. So I always like to, at the end of an interview, gather different opinions from different filmmakers at different levels of their career, to get their advice that, we can build this big repertoire of advice from filmmakers to give to these people who reach out to us. So one piece of advice that you would give to someone brand new, really wants to make a movie, has the idea, but not quite the path of how to get down to do it. What would you tell them?
Ooh, well, if they are writing specifically, I would say get it out of your head and get it onto paper. And do an outline, do a first draft, whatever's comfortable for you. And just know, like, it might not be as good on paper as it is in your head, but if you keep at it, it'll get there. And start small too. Like so many people are like, oh, I have this idea for this huge film. And I'm like, what would be the 5-minute version of that? Can you start with that? So I like to think like, hey, come up with an amazing story, dwindle it down to a 5-minute film, get your final draft, or Celtex is free. Use the screenwriting softwares instead of writing in a Google Doc, and write like 5, 6, 7 pages, and then maybe make it, maybe try like if your friend has a nice camera, if you have a friend who's a photographer and has wanted to try video work, start with a short film. It's really like, it's an incredible experience to see an idea come to life. So I always recommend like putting pen to paper and then actually making it. Because if you, like, as a writer, I love writing feature films and I love writing TV pilots. They're a lot harder to make though. Like if I didn't have the short films that I write and make, I'd probably be like, ugh, banging my head against the wall. Like, what am I doing? So give yourself the gift of writing something short and actually filming it and making it because it really is a gift. So that's where I would start.
That's great advice, because I don't think anyone has ever said that. Start small. Like that's seems
Yeah.
like an obvious thing, but I think when people are like, I want to make a movie, they think it has to be an hour long, it has to be 90 minutes. And it's like, no, just make it small.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
perfect the first time. And you're a testament to that. The short film was the small version of it for your documentary,
Yeah.
and now it's moving into a feature length. So you start
Yeah.
and evolve it as you go along.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let it be like a proof of concept, whatever it is, but like let that short film like speak for itself. Let your artistry really shine through in that. And it can take you far, like this grant is life-changing, and I'm really excited to make this feature documentary, but it could not have happened without the short film. So, yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Well, it was great talking with you, Rachel. Where can people find you and get more information about you?
I am on Instagram at bionic.brunette, and my website is rachelahandler.com.